All right, everybody. All right. I will be back in 10 seconds because I have to go pick up my espresso. Give me a second. All right. We're now ready to go. That is not a point. 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 Because I thought about it. I literally thought about it as I was walking over to get the espresso. I was like, is this fair that I just did that? And then I was like, does this count as me being late? And I was like, no, it doesn't. Because if I had just taken a break like 20 minutes from now in stream to go walk over and make an espresso and then came back, then nobody would be saying, oh, that adds to the late counter. You get what I'm saying? I just chose to do it at the beginning of stream. I could have just waited for like 30 minutes and then gotten the espresso, and then nobody would be saying anything. I could just be like, I need to get a drink of water, and then I go get a drink of water. So it does not count. It's very different. I gotta act. It's the time that stream actually begins. You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? Because I could have just waited. I could have waited. I just didn't want to interrupt the stream once it gets rolling. So this is me trying to better the stream in general, the stream experience. I should not be punished for trying to help your guys' viewing experience. Because I figure you guys don't want breaks, right? So this is my way of doing I'm just taking a break that I could have done later in the stream and moving it to the beginning. Same thing. All right, let's get stream likes up to 50 real quick. Let's get stream likes up to 50. Dick so small I piss on the balls. Thanks for the 5. Surely Teach won't complete his trifecta by stealing the evil apocalyptic devil zone like he stole the evil Logia and the apocalyptic Parmesia. Everyone tells me that I say Parmesia wrong. I think I said Paramecia. I forget how to say it. I think I've changed it. Parmesia. I don't know. I think there's a solid chance. It's so difficult because I really do believe that Emu is supposed to remain as a villain of the story. I don't think that Oda will have Luffy fight the same fruit twice. So this is the tricky thing for me. I think that Luffy will defeat Blackbeard and Emu. I don't think that Luffy will defeat Emu and then Blackbeard takes his fruit and then Luffy has to fight the fruit again. I don't think that's likely. I still think that Luffy... I think they're both meant to be final villains. The order is a little complicated. I need to do a full video fleshing out what I think. Does that make sense? Philly says valid, I'll let it slide. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate your rationality. Marco Cadillo says we want the time to not change every time. It didn't. In fact, this time was early. Who remembers if you saw really early today? It might have been really... Yeah, I think really early today, the stream was set for 5 p.m. EST. I moved it forward an hour to 4:30 p.m. EST. Nobody complains when I move the time forward, huh? I don't know. Parmesia. I don't remember how I used to say it. Okay. Marco Cadillo, thanks for the 2. Bro, always changing the time to avoid points. I didn't change. I started the stream at... If anything, I moved the stream forward today. It was supposed to be at 5. I moved it to 4:30. And then I just took a little break to get me a little espresso. Just a break I could have taken later on in the stream, and then that would have killed flow. You guys would have been sad. We would have been such a good flow. We'd be talking about One Piece stuff, and then I'd be like, I need to go get up and get some espresso because I'm thirsty. And then you guys would be like, oh no, Morge, the whole thing is ruined. We're sad now because we don't want... I'd be like, well, I can play you guys the Jimmy Neutron clip, and you guys would be like, Morge, we hate this clip. We don't find it funny. I know how this cycle goes, right? So my hands are tied. I had to get I could have gotten the espresso later, but it would hurt your guys' viewing experience, right? So I took the little espresso break, I moved it forward, and then this way everybody's happy. The Black Blur, thanks for the 5. Well, the Broken Trident, merfolk shark features, and gills point towards killing him into being a Jinbei opponent. R.I.P. Usopp. I still think that's racist. Time out. Why? That's racist. You guys call me racist sometimes because of my comments towards Fishman, my derogatory comments. Whoever the fuck let killing him be a celestial dragon, I don't even fucking understand. I think that's I strongly protest that. I don't I don't need any of this DEI action among my celestial dragons. Let's keep that bloodline pure. But I'll just say this. You guys can make all the comments you want about me being racist towards the Fishman. That's racist. The comment by the Black Blur right there. Well, the Broken Trident, merfolk shark features, and gills point toward killing him into being a Jinbei opponent. R.I.P. Usopp. No, all that means is that killing him's probably like part merfolk or part fishman or something like that. That has no relevance to him fighting Jinbei. What does that even mean? Why does that mean he has to fight Jinbei? Can you explain that comment, please? Why should he have to fight Jinbei? Huh? That doesn't really make any sense to me. I would love an explanation of that comment. Yeah. Seems pretty racist. I didn't even think of Jinbei once when I saw that dude. I was thinking, why'd they fuck up the Celestial Dragons? They had a good thing going. Just the places your mind goes. If anything, it means he might be a Zoro opponent. Anyway, let's keep going. Bunfagum, thanks for the 14. Good morrow, Morge. I'm in a bet with my friend that you will release the Wano video before George Martin released The Winds of Winter. I bet on you. Please don't fail me. Oh, I'll definitely get it out before George R. Martin gets his out. No worries, Bunfagum. I got you. That's guaranteed. That's a guaranteed. Let's get stream likes up to 50 real quick. Let's get the stream likes up to 50. He's way too strong for Jinbei, says Tala. Yeah, if we're being objectively true, just based on that Gunko performance, I don't think that killing him. I don't think Jinbei can beat killing him. Yeah. Yeah, Jinbei didn't fight Jack either, and Jinbei actually also. Jinbei actually would have been. Like, if you just go down the list, Jinbei would have been, on paper, a fitting matchup for Jack because Zoro's first, so he fights King, Sanji's second, so he fights Queen, and then Jinbei's third among the crew, so he fights Jack. But Oda actually didn't have him do that, which I think was better overall because for what little it's worth, I think closing out the Inuarashi, Nekomamushi, Jack thread is good. Let's get stream likes up to 50 real quick. Cadmus, thanks for the 5. Imagine Imu is the Nika from the first world that got corrupted and fell from being a god to become Satan like Lucifer in Christianity. That would be really, really, really cool if that's the case. The problem is that we know that there can only be one version of a devil fruit, right? So, like, Joy Boy had the previous Nika fruit, so how could Imu have it at the same time? Unless there's alternate versions of the same fruit, like I've theorized Loki might have an alternate version of the Nika fruit due to there being different beliefs regarding what Nika is. It would be really cool if that is the case for Imu. Because his abilities are not the same as Nika's, so it would have to be some different type of fruit. The tricky thing that's the catch to me, here's the thing that's the catch to me, which is that it's implied that, no, it's made clear that Imu was just a king. He was a king during the Second World. He was Saint Imu Narona or something like that, right? Like, he's a person. So I don't think he's necessarily from the first world or something, but it would be a crazy twist. One Piece, One Life, thanks for the 5. What's good, Morge? Interesting panel of Luffy, Loki, and Hadruden TG. Makes me wonder if they're like the new age Luffy kid in Law. Luffy gigantifies MB. I don't know what MB means, but no, Hadruden fucking sucks. That would be like the new age version of Luffy kid and like, I don't know, Penguin or something like that. Hadruden is weak. That's the whole point. Loki bullied him as a kid because Hadruden just didn't deserve to be in King of the Giant talks, you know? Colin Parker with a great point. I noticed this too. I think this is a very interesting point. Thanks for the 5. Imu uses the word blunder in interesting ways. Lily scattering the glyphs, and now Harold saving Elbaf. Are blunders major acts of defiance towards Imu? So I love that you just called that out. I love that you just called that out because that's what I was thinking when I read this chapter. We're getting some reads on Imu's personality, and it's very, very much so a narcissistic one, right? Which is a big surprise, obviously. God of the world, he's got some narcissistic tendencies, but Imu seems to legitimately, he does not like the idea of people turning against him, right? Lily fucking obviously betrayed Emu. Harold, whatever the fuck Harold did, he betrayed Emu, right? Emu chooses to call these mistakes. It's almost like a bruised ego sort of thing, which is like, you should have just done what you're supposed to. You should have just done what I wanted you to do, right? You made a mistake. These are mistakes. Like, it's not like it can be an intelligent act of defiance in his views, right? In his views, it's like, no, obviously you're supposed to be doing what I want you to do, right? Oh, you chose to go against me. You made a mistake. Like, you made a blunder. If only you could see, like, the error of your ways. He views it as like, oh, they're acting irrationally, or like they've just gone mad or crazy or something like that, or if they're being stupid, right? He can't fathom that, like, these characters that he wants under his control, he demands loyalty from, might legitimately just view things the other way and want to rebel against him and defy him because they think he's a fucking shitty person, right? I like that consistent characterization quite a bit because it feels a little bit real. If you know people with those sort of character types, they will if they view people turning against them or whatever, they'll try and spin it as like, oh, this person just made a big mistake, or they fucked up, like, what an idiot, like, they're doing this or something. Like, why aren't they just doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is what I want them to be doing, right? I like that quite a bit. It also sheds a ton of insight on what actually went down in the Loki Harold story, and it sheds a ton of insight on the full Harold story in general, which I think is really, really interesting. Continuing on, Philly, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 17 months, man. Make sure to get your Pirate King submissions in because that's going on right now. So the Pirate King podcast submissions are, they're up at this moment in time. So just get your submissions in for the month. Just get your submissions in for the month because I'm probably going to be recording it over the course of the weekend. For those of you who don't know, the Pirate King podcast is the longest podcast I do. I do it once a month. All Pirate King tier members and up, either as YouTube members or Patreon members, can submit any questions that they want about YouTube, One Piece, other anime, manga, movies, video games, life, NBA, whatever stuff. You can submit all those things there, and then I answer each question over the course of the podcast. Every single person's question, very in-depth, in a way that's more in-depth than I would usually do for streams, because streams I got to be moving at a certain pace. But the Pirate King podcast is a very laid-back, long-form podcast. So if you want to hop in, right now you get, if you want to hop into the Pirate King podcast submissions, you can keep submitting. I would say probably this weekend I would be finding time to record, or I would try to find time to record. So get your submissions in while you can. Chill on Morge. At least he doesn't have those dumbass pre-stream waiting periods, lol. Great chapter. What the hell is Chopper up to with him running the air like Gear 5th Luffy? That was funny. I like that. Because One Piece sometimes does get a little bit cartoony even before Gear 5th. Like, just some cartoon physics logic a little bit. And Gear 5th just ramped that up. And thanks, Philly. I appreciate it. I feel like I've been so good lately with the being on time stuff. I feel like I've been so good that people are trying to, like, catch me on the small things. I feel like the espresso break is fair. I feel like that's fair. But I will consider doing a pre-stream wait period because you mentioned it. I'm just kidding. Sheriff Laffy, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 32 months, man. Thank you for the long time support. What do you think about music being what reverses the demonic transformations? Highlights Brook and might explain why pirates traditionally sing. That's a good idea. I thought that would be the trick for Gunko, but if it's for all the giants in general, that'd be really cool. The other thing that we know kind of does it is strong Conqueror's Haki, a burst of really powerful Conqueror's Haki, because we saw that when all the Gorosei were attacking at the end of Egghead, Joy Boy's gigantic burst of Conqueror's Haki basically turned all of the Gorosei back into human form. So we know that really strong Conqueror's Haki can also do the trick. So either it's going to be Luffy or it's going to be Brook. I wouldn't be surprised if Brook is what turns Gunko back, and maybe Luffy's the one who has to turn the Giants of Elbaf back. Sampath Sakesh Revolprati, thanks a lot. Yo, Morge, Oda dropped a banger after banger. Had a crazy thought, not a theory. What if the Loki that we see now is flipped version? What if the Loki we see now is flipped version with the horns and all? That would be so fucking... That would be one of the coolest twists Oda's ever done. The problem is that he doesn't have all those other traits, you know, like they don't, like the wing, like the demonic experience, the appearance, like they've got wings, they've got all sorts of stuff. So I think that's unlikely, wings, fangs, etc. And I feel like other characters would recognize that something's gone wrong here. Hadroot would be like, what the fuck? Unless Loki was swapped as a kid or some shit. It's interesting. Definitely a very interesting idea. I think it would do wonders for, like, a potential character thread for Loki. But I don't think it's likely, just based on appearance things. Also, let's get the stream likes up to 100 real quick. And yeah, the story's just on an absolute roller coaster right now. Like, One Piece is just phenomenal at this moment. I'm having... Elbaf has... First of all, okay, I've been asking this almost every time, right? I've been asking this almost every time, but it says a lot that Elbaf is so hard to predict in this regard. Is this the final battle or midpoint? Final battle, midpoint. I really can't tell at this point in time. I genuinely don't know. They could go up there and just kick ass. They could go up there and kick ass. It's entirely possible. Interesting. So actually, if I recall, like a chapter or two ago, more people thought that it was I think it was a closer split between Final Battle and Midpoint. I think it was like a 40-60 split. But now we've got Midpoint as like a hard winner here with nearly 80%, 75-80% of people thinking. Interesting. David Wilson says both. That's not really how that works. I mean, it could be such an extended sequence that you get the midpoint and then it segues into the final battle. Normally I would say midpoint, but after Wano, I feel this is it. Yeah, that's how I feel now. If you had the old Morge, I would be hard. I would be the next week's video would literally be about like why Luffy and them are about to lose. If this was the old Morge. I no longer have faith in that sort of thing. If it was the old me, I would be hard banking on that. I'd be like, this is definitely the midpoint. They lose, right? I've been saying that in streams and everything, but I just no longer have the belief in the story that Oda will have Luffy and them lose, like, in a dramatic fashion anymore, in a way that's really big and devastating and high stakes. I believe that can happen. I do still have faith that Oda will have that happen to Luffy at least once. Luffy and the Straw Hats at least once before the story is said and done. So maybe in the final arc, maybe to Blackbeard or something before they get the run back against Blackbeard. But I don't know. Elbaf, I don't know. I just don't know. The old Morge would have just been like, of course, come on. Like, this is basic narrative structure. This is how you write a story. This is dramatic storytelling, right? You can't just have Luffy and the good guys go up there and whoop ass, right? There's not really any story to that. But New Morge is just like, well, maybe according to Oda, that's a story. I don't know. It is encouraging that at least back in the day during Wano, when I was just like, no, they gotta lose here, for there to be, you know, drama, narrative structure, yada yada. At least back then it was more split, whereas here right now, my hope is that they lose, and it seems like most people feel that they're gonna lose. So I feel encouraged by what the masses are feeling. Brooke as the goat says the raid will fail. This is another instance of the raid will fail, but I'm not allowed to say that anymore, so I just have to grit my teeth. I'm just like, I feel like this should fail. The one thing that's got me thinking that maybe it could be victorious is because it's Loki's involvement. Because we're probably going to get a debut of Loki fighting here, right? We're probably going to get a cool debut of Loki fighting here. And in that case, would Oda really have Loki get his shit kicked in the first time he debuts Loki fighting after all of this hype surrounding Loki? Because I figure if Oda has Loki fight here, it would be thanks to Chopper's miracle drugs and stuff like that. Hold on. I gotta type one thing. Yeah, I figured because of Chopper's miracle drug, like the thing that was used in Onigashima to get Zoro back on his feet. That drug is like now a ace in the hole. Uh, yeah, so I think that that's a possibility. And so if Oda has Loki fight like that for the first time, then we got to get a cool debut for Loki, right? Like, because it just wouldn't make sense after all that hype and build up that that's the first time. It's the same way that this is the first time we're seeing Emu kind of fight, and Emu's looking like a badass. The first time we saw Gunko fight was against the Strats. Gunko was pretty badass. First time we saw Sommers, he was beating Saul's shit in, right? First time we saw Gaban, he was beating Sommers' shit in, right? Just generally, you want the character's debut moment after they've been hyped a bit to be something cool and climactic that hypes them up, right? So, yeah, it would just be a little confusing if maybe they don't heal Loki, and so Loki gets his shit kicked in, and then later down the arc, Loki gets to fight all healed up. And then the flip side is like, if they do heal Loki and he goes up there, it would have to be a very temporary heal, right? So then after that, he's going to be all injured for the rest of the arc. So that's what's kind of tricking me a little bit. That's what's kind of confusing me a little bit. Yeah, I just don't know about the Loki situation. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, I'm glad to see, though, that a lot of people think that's a landed defeat, because I do hope so. Let's get the stream likes up to 100. But I'll be honest, right now, because I don't feel like the story needs them to lose, I just think it would be nice. I think it would be nice to have. But, like, Elbaf is not the finale of the saga. This is a very impromptu battle that's taking place. It's okay if this isn't like an all-out defeat or something like that. I just do think that they need to get checked in some way before this whole story is done. So if that's not this moment, that's okay. One of the positive points in terms of like, will this be a moment of will this just be the midpoint of the arc where the Strats don't just kick Emu's ass, is that Oda's built in and out already, which is that they need to get back to Marijua. There's an emergency going on in Marijua right now that is level 10 red alert emergency, right? So they do need to get back fairly quickly, which means that whatever's happening here has a timer. It has a time limit. So there's a logical reason that the Giants and Emu and the Gods Knights would have to leave Elbaf without necessarily being defeated by Luffy. Let's get stream likes up to 100 real quick. Jolly D. Joser, thanks for the 5. President and Elon break up. Gagan confirmed number 2. Haliban in 5. That's so funny. You just came in with like 3 straight controversial statements. 3 straight controversial. I don't want to comment too much on. I'll leave alone the first part of your statement. Gaban confirmed number 2. I don't know if that's just bait or whatever, but to me it's kind of I don't think this confirms Gaban number 2. If anything, it does tell us a little bit about the Roger, Rayleigh, Gaban situation, which is, I always felt like Rayleigh is more chill, and the way that he and Gaban seem to get along in the small flashbacks that we've gotten of the Roger Pirates, it's been much more amicable than Zoro and Sanji, in that it almost seems like Rayleigh and Gaban are often on the same wavelength, and Roger is the odd man out that they're kind of butting heads with, right? That's what we've seen in the little glimpses. But it's cool to see that even though Rayleigh and Gaban do seem more on the same wavelength than Zoro and Sanji are, they still, Gaban at least is still prideful and tries to argue that he's number 2, even though everything in the story, down to their literal names, gold, silver, copper, pretty much establishes very clearly that Gaban would be number 3, right? But the fact that Gaban thinks he's number 2, that's, I think that's cute for the rivalry in terms of, or cute for the dynamic and like just little parallels to Zoro and Sanji. It's a funny whatever joke. You could debate all day how far apart Rayleigh and Gaban are supposed to be, but it does seem as though just from the way Oda named them from the start, Oda knows the order that they're supposed to be. And it does seem like, in general, based on reputation at the very least, reputation isn't everything, but reputation at the very least, it is generally believed that Gabon was probably third and Rayleigh was second. Rayleigh is also the much more notorious and well-known name in that, like, all the Straw Hats knew who Rayleigh was back in pre-time skip, and were shocked to hear his name. Whereas Gabon was a name that had to be explained by the Giants to the Straw Hats. So I don't think Oda's actually trying to say that Gabon was stronger than Rayleigh, but I do believe that based on portrayals so far, Gabon and Rayleigh were probably decently relative to one another. So that's something to consider. Haliban in 5. Oh, I could say I'm so happy about what happened last night with the Pacers, but I won't talk about it. I didn't even watch that game because I just thought it was so foregone. But I did check in. This is all I'll say. I hate the Thunder so much, not as individual people, human beings, but as a sports team, as a sports fan. I hate the Thunder so much to the point that they kill my love for the NBA. I have not watched the NBA since the Thunder made it to the conference finals. I just haven't. Last night, I was checking the score, and I was like, yeah, Pacers losing, Thunder winning, Pacers losing, Thunder winning. I would check in every now and then, and it'd be like, it's kind of close. And like, I kept hearing all these things about the miracle run that the Pacers were having. And so that's what gave me this sort of irrational hope and belief, which is like, everything says that the Pacers can magically just do it. It's unlikely, but the Pacers, like, they've got this miracle thing going on for them. So, like, it's cool that my hopes will never be completely gone. So I'm seeing, the score, and I'm seeing the Thunder winning at every time I'm checking. I only checked a few times. But it's always tight. Like, it's always within 15 to 12, 10 or something, right? And then I'm checking in towards the end of the game, like 3 minutes left, and I'm like, it's not that far off. If it was any other team besides the Pacers, I'd be like, well, the Thunder will probably just close it out. But because I'm like, the Pacers, they have this miracle situation, and they keep doing this shit in the fourth quarter. So once I saw it's not that far off, I was like, do I dare to hope and believe? And I just went with the superstitious sports fan thing of just like, I'm not going to turn on the game. I'm not going to check or anything like that. It's like Schrodinger's score, where it's like, if I turn this off right now, like, or if I not turn it off, if I look away from the score right now and just don't check back, then at this moment in time, that miracle probability of the Pacers winning this is still alive, and neither team has won, and either reality could be true, right? But in my heart of hearts, I was like, I want to believe, but the Thunder probably just close it out, right? When I turn the score back on, the Thunder will just have won. When I finally checked late at night, okay, what actually happened with this game, I was fully ready to be disappointed. And when I saw that score of 111 to 110 or whatever the fuck it was, 109, 110, like, I genuinely I literally believed in magic. I believed in life being scripted. I believed in destiny, stuff like that, because I'm like, this is, whatever the fuck is happening with this Pacers run is actually magical. Like, why does it feel like they're protagonists of a story? Like, you couldn't fucking script a movie to be that unrealistic, where they're down the entire fucking game, they never take a lead, and then I'm fucking checking the score over and over again, like, on the side, not even over, once in a while, and I'm just like, they have hope, they have a chance, they got that miracle protagonist magic stuff going on, and then it actually comes true in the last 0.3 seconds of the game. I don't know. Sorry about all the NBA talk, but it is genuinely baffling, because I'd been reading and seeing, like, I have not watched a single Pacers game. No, I watched a bit of Pacers Knicks. But I'd been seeing and reading stuff about, like, the highlights. I'm like, damn, they keep doing it. This is so bizarre. How does this keep happening? How does Tyrese Halliburton keep doing this? But it just felt like once they hit the finals against the Thunder, it's like, it has to stop somewhere, because this isn't like a fucking sports movie. This is the real world, right? Magic isn't a real thing. When I saw that score last night, I genuinely believed in magic. And I was just like, they can do it. The Pacers could just win this finals. I was like, this might just be this sort of like destined universe granted gift or something like that to the basketball world, that we don't have to see the Thunder win. I hadn't watched fucking NBA podcasts, NBA discussions, or anything like that since the fucking second round of the NBA, because I was just so bummed. I was just like, this fucking lame-ass Thunder team that's fucking cheesing the shit out of the rules or whatever with how much they fucking foul and then get fouls or whatever, and foul bait. They're going to want to fucking win the NBA. This is going to kill my love for the game, at least for the next year or so. And then I'm seeing this beautiful thing of just this underdog team. I normally don't even root for underdogs just because they're underdogs, but against this Thunder team, fuck yeah, I will. It's a thing of beauty. It's a thing of beauty what's happening. Anyway, let's keep going. Sheriff Luffy, thanks for being a Yonko tier member. Oh no, we covered this. The Black Blur, thanks to the 5. Morch, have you seen the Fishman on Fishman crime? Hody literally killed Otahime for no reason. Yeah, it's terrible what they what they do to their own people, but I mean, Hody was the exception. I don't think generally Fishman on Fishman crime is a thing in One Piece. I think they do have a lot of solidarity. Brook is the GOAT. Thanks a lot. After Imu's latest performance, I'm very excited for him as the final villain of One Piece. He goes against everything One Piece stands for, and can see him parallel Emperor Palpatine, who also opposes liberty. I mean, like, generally don't, like, all evil villain bosses kind of oppose liberty? Because, like, I think all evil emperors in fiction oppose liberty because that's kind of their whole thing. But I do agree that Imu being the final villain of One Piece, it does just fit very, very well with the themes of the story so far. This entire time, like, the world government has been the big evil, and then you work your way up a little bit more, and it's like, okay, the Celestial Dragons are the big evil, and then Oda finally gave a name and face to, like, the true root of all evil, like, what's at the core, the heart of the Celestial Dragons, and it's Imu. I think everything just kind of fits. It was like a funnel. Everything we learned about the world of One Piece was kind of like a funnel leading up to the final boss, right? Imu, right? Because you start the story, and you're introduced to this world where the main villains are generally the pirates, right? Like, you go through all of East Blue, the bad guys are pirates at every turn, right? Buggy, Kuro, Don Krieg, you know the pirates, right? Arlong, etc., right? The pirates are the problem, but we also have this sort of sneaking suspicion that we get the sense that the Marines are also, they're complicit in this, right? Then you move up a little bit further. We go a little bit further in the world, and we begin to realize that, okay, it's not just that the Marines are complicit, and they also, like, their corrupt nature and stuff adds to the problem of pirates. It might be that the Marines and the world government that authorizes them, they're actually the bigger problem, in that the pirate world is the resulting problem from this world government situation. The world government and the way the world government functions and oppresses people leads to pirates as a fallout, right? It's sort of a side effect of having such an oppressive force, right? You have people that basically try to break from the system and just cause chaos and everything like that, and they become agents of chaos, right? And those become pirates, right? And then it becomes cyclical because the world government uses this problem that only exists because of their own existence, right? To justify the things that they do. So it's this beautiful sort of cycle that emulates how things and propaganda and stuff is dictated by authority in the real world, right? So we start with the story believing that it's about pirates being the problem, with Marines kind of being a problem. Then we go a little further and we're like, no, it's really the Marines and the world government that caused this whole situation with pirates, right? Pirates are the fallout from these guys being the problem. And then we go a little bit further up and we're like, okay, so the problem isn't just that there's a world government and it's Marines, right? Like, why is this government and the Marine police system so flawed in the first place? It's because of the greed of those behind it, right? These Celestial Dragons, the nobles of the world, that's the real issue, right? They create this whole system to justify themselves ruling above everybody, and they don't give a fuck that it leads to so much damage and violence and pirates and criminals and terrorists, etc., for the common man, right? So you're going up the pyramid, and then it's kind of like, okay, now we need to basically have a sort of like hero versus villain. How do we solve the whole thing? What's the person we gotta punch at the end of the day? Because the Celestial Dragons, they're too punchable, right? Luffy punched one back in chapter 502, right? They're too easy. So you need like a big bad guy, a real big bad guy that's like representative of all the evil that the Celestial Dragons are, right? And so then you get to the top of the pyramid and you have Imu, right? Perfect. Like, I love the way Oda shaped the story to basically all funnel up to the tippy top of the pyramid, and Imu's fucking head looks like the tippy top of a pyramid. And that's what Luffy's about to face today. So I love just the structure of it all, the way the story flows together. It's really beautiful. But that's not to say that pirates aren't still the problem. Like, that's why Blackbeard will still be a very relevant villain. I still don't think he's out of the running as final villain of the story, but I do think that Imu is, at least for now, the clear-cut favorite. Continuing on. Also, let's get stream likes up to 100 because we're right there. Cutloaf, thanks for the 2. A blunder is also a mistake in a game like Reversi. Oh, cool. We're getting some details about that. You know what I actually watched recently? I watched that documentary on AlphaGo. Um, that's kind of cool. I know it's not the same game, but it just reminds me of that. The game of Go. Um, Daniel Iavorsky, thanks for the 5. Do you think Usopp will free the slaves in Marijua like he freed them in Dressrosa? I didn't think about that. That would be some crazy cool foreshadowing if Usopp's the one to do that. That would be really fucking cool foreshadowing if that's ultimately Usopp's role. I also thought about this chapter, which is that I originally felt like killing him would be Usopp's opponent. I still think there's a shot for that happening, because we still don't know how strong killing him is in like straight 1v1 combat. We know he can fucking beat that walrus dude, but how fucking strong? Who knows how strong the walrus dude is, right? Killing him also uses bow and arrow, and I just feel like Usopp could be a hard counter to killing him's abilities. But at the same time, interesting alternate thought popped through my head, which is that what if Usopp's got to fight fucking Dory and Brogy? What if that's his matchup for the arc? That'd be kind of crazy if he's got to fuck up Dory and Brogy. By all accounts, they should not be getting fucked up by Usopp. They should be way too strong for that, but you never know. I think that would be really, really cool. Things kind of come full circle in that way. But Usopp freeing the slaves in Marijua, yeah, I would love that. Would make Dragon look like a real bum if he doesn't even... Dragon's got to do... When we get to Marijua, it better be the Dragon show. He's got to have done something. Something to make us feel like, we were right to have waited so long to see you, right? Dare Bopler, thanks for the 2. Blackbeard will show up at the end of Wano cover story. I do think that's very possible. I don't know why we're now seeing Yamato do sumo wrestling competitions. I thought the next time we saw her, it would be something cool. But it is what it is. Justin, what's up, man? Justin Holland, thanks for the 5. Luffy's locked in, on his way now, and his hockey seems to be passively growing. More hope that Luffy/Imu meeting does wonders for Luffy's maturity. I do hope that something like that happens for Luffy. I think it'll be very interesting seeing Luffy interact with the god of the world. Whether or not Luffy even fully understands what Imu represents. Luffy being locked in is cool to see. I feel like with his observation hockey growing, I feel like this was a case of voice of all things, right? So that's my feeling, right? This was voice of all things. That's why he's able to tell specifically that it was Chopper. It sounds like that's voice of all things. I do feel like this is an arc that's set to be very centric on observation hockey. So hopefully that gets expanded on pretty soon. Diaclia, thanks for bringing a Yonko to your member for 30 months. Prediction. Someone will mention that flipping is a devil fruit ability, and they'll just throw seawater down the giants, which turns them back to normal. That's an interesting prediction. It's definitely very possible. It kind of reminds me of, like, Thriller Bark. We know how many references to Thriller Bark we're getting throughout this arc. It does remind me a little bit of Thriller Bark, wherein you had, obviously, the zombies all being cured by shooting salt into them. So maybe there's something to that here. I would love, though, if the answer, like we talked about earlier in stream, I would love, though, if the answer is more along the lines of, like, either Luffy's Conqueror's Haki turning them back, kind of like Joy Boy's Haki turned the Gorosei back, or if it's something to do with Brook and music. I feel like the salt stuff in Thriller Bark, it was like an easy, like, plot device type way of just like, well, here's just the trick to doing it. I'd love if it took something a little bit more to deal with Imu stuff, you know? Sabian Rob, thanks for the 5. Morge, Pluton will activate, causing the realm of the sun to be submerged with the final act of One Piece taking place in the Heaven Realm. That's an interesting theory. That'd be kind of crazy. So you think that, like, the bottom of Elbaf will basically be blasted off, and then this Heaven Realm will fall and land in the ocean, and they'll be fighting there? That could be cool. I do at least subscribe to the idea of the Elbaf tree going down. I do believe that is a very solid possibility. I do believe the Elbaf tree could go down. I feel like that's been foreshadowed a lot this arc. At the same time, I don't know if the final story of final arc of One Piece will take place at Elbaf. So, but maybe the final fight of the arc might take place in the Heaven Realm. That could be really cool. That is actually a very interesting idea. Rob, thanks for the 5. What do you think of Luffy knowing it was Chopper who fell off? Was it observation hockey or the voice of all things? I feel like it was the voice of all things. Yeah, I want to say Voice of All Things makes sense because that's something that we need to delve into a little bit more for Luffy. It hasn't actually been that important in the story so far. It's just Luffy's heard things here and there, like hearing Zunisha. Roger could hear the Sea Kings. Luffy could hear the Sea Kings. But we still need to understand why is it important that Luffy has this ability in the story. So now could be a good time to start delving into that. Aether, thanks for the 5. Morge, manga of the year is Orb on the Movements of the Earth. If it doesn't get to your top 5, I'll gift 20 subs, give it 5 chapters. Here's the thing, Aether. So this has been brought up before, and I looked it up, and I totally 1000% believe that it is a phenomenal manga, phenomenal story. Here's the problem. I only read anime and manga, or only watch anime and manga that has fighting and action and powers. Maybe powers aren't always necessary, but like fighting and action, or at the very least some sort of cool sci-fi fantasy elements. I need that. And Orb, the Movements of the Earth, it sounds like something very grounded about the astronomy or some shit. Okay, I'm sure it's amazing drama and all of that stuff and really, really good. I'm sure it's really fucking good. Okay, I'm sure it's really good, amazing writing, etc. But when I come to this medium, I go to different mediums for different things, right? Like films, books I don't read as much nowadays, but books I did at least used to read more serious books and serious literature or whatever to some degree. Movies, I love serious dramas, yada, yada, yada. Movies I generally don't care as much for, like action movies or whatever, unless it's like something for theaters or with a group or something like that. But when it comes to anime and manga, I'm coming to this medium specifically to scratch a certain itch, which is fantasy, fighting, sci-fi, stuff like that. If it doesn't have fighting, that's okay. At least give me some sort of fantasy or sci-fi stuff, kind of like Steins Gate or something, okay? I don't want to read something about astronomy, even if it's some brilliant character drama, character writing. That's just not, it's just not, I can't pick it up. It's just not the way it is. It's not the way it's not what I come to this medium for. Tapio Treviso says, no wonder you like Solo Leveling. I fucking loved Solo Leveling. I love Solo Leveling so much. I loved Solo Leveling because it was so certain of what it was. It gave me exactly what I needed, which was like, I was looking for a new action anime to watch that I could just delve into the action and enjoy the action. And Solo Leveling did that. And it didn't. So after I finished Solo Leveling, I tried to turn on God of High School. In God of High School, it pissed me the fuck off because like the action was kind of cool, but it did the in-between stuff so wrong. Like the in-between stuff, it would cut to like some flashback about this girl's like family sword or some bullshit or like that. And it's just like, I don't want to watch this shit right now. I don't think this is that good. I want to get back to the action. That's it. Solo Leveling, it knows what to do. Every single episode of Solo Leveling, it's some cool ass action shit, right? And you've got whatever character stuff happening, but it doesn't drag. It's relatively fine character stuff. Like, it does enough that it's fine. It doesn't drag. It knows what it needs to get to, and it fucking gets to it. That's it. Action, a little bit of character stuff, like some outside stuff, set up context, get to the next thing. More action, more hype. Keep the plot rolling. We're getting to this big raid or whatever the fuck. We're scaling through this demon's castle and stuff like that. That's it. We're ranking up. Cool. Give me episode after episode of that. That's all I needed. I didn't need God of High School's girl's wooden sword backstory shit that's like another lazy anime backstory. Obviously, some anime have like phenomenal backstories and character writing or whatever, but I think I would rather, if a series doesn't have like great character writing and backstories and all that stuff, I would rather remove that and just keep the action rolling, I realized. That's why I loved Solo Leveling. I could just turn my brain off and just enjoy. Phenomenal anime. Phenomenal series. Stormy says the anime actually butchered the story, bruh. I finished the manhwa of Solo Leveling. I think that the manhwa was solid as well. Just gave me what I wanted. All right, continuing on. Jolly D. Joestar, thanks to the 2. Brook flashback in 8 chapters. You think? Why? Brook flashback in 8 chapters. Why 8 chapters specifically? Why 8 chapters specifically? Is there something I'm missing? 1159? I don't know if there's something specific about that. Oh, God of High School. The anime messed it up. I actually, way back, I've tried to read the manhwa of God of High School. I didn't like that either. It just felt really random and chaotic to me. To be fair, I didn't get far into it. But God of High School, actually, way back, I want to say when I was in high school, or maybe early college, I tried reading God of High School, and I didn't care for that. Dick so small I piss on my balls. Thanks for the 5. I'm telling you, Teach will slink off from his fight with Luffy during the final war to steal Imu's power once Dragon has him on the ropes. Teach will slink off from his fight with Luffy during the final war. I mean, I'm not going to say it's not a possibility. I think it's totally a possibility that Imu goes down to Dragon or something like that, and then Blackbeard steals Imu's power. It's definitely a possibility. I am inclined to think that Emu and Blackbeard are both villains that Luffy has to defeat at some point himself, one or the other. And so I don't know if I would bet on that, but it's definitely a possibility. The simple thing I'll say about, because people are talking about solo leveling, etc. The simple thing I'll say about this is like, it's kind of like, I like John Wick. I like the John Wick movies. The plot is fucking stupid. The character writing is like fine. Like, John Wick isn't some super deep character or anything like that, but the world is cool. The plot is relatively stupid, but it's engaging and fun, and you can kind of immerse yourself in the world a little bit. John Wick's character motivation isn't the deepest, but you can find him and engage it. It gives you enough that it's like, okay, this is a fun, engaging character to follow this story through. And then you're in for some fucking kick-ass action and a lot of cool kick-ass scaling action sequences. The plot gets crazier and crazier and the stakes go up and up. That's all solo leveling is. That's what makes it cool. Like, it doesn't need to be something super fucking deep. It can just be like fucking John Wick. If I were to compare, for example, I would say let's say a Marvel movie, right? A Marvel movie, it's got action, but not always the best action, right? And it's going to try and generally do more actual character writing and scene stuff or whatever than John Wick. But, like, the average Marvel movie is not as good as, like, the average John Wick movie because at some point, it is just better to commit to the vision, which is just, like, we're going to do a fucking kick-ass action-based story where we're going to do the minimum that we need to do with the character to keep it, like, not, like, super, like throwaway, there's just nothing there. We're going to give him motivation, we're going to give him some stuff that makes him compelling, we're going to give him like a character storyline or whatever, but that doesn't need to be the meat of it. It's just what makes things ride, and you just need to make that good enough to get from big action sequence to action sequence, and that's what's fucking exciting. I love solo leveling the way I love the John Wick action movies. That's all I really needed at some point. Because sometimes when you're being recommended the new Shonen of the Week manga, it's kind of like being recommended, or an anime, right? It's kind of like being recommended like a Marvel movie where like you're getting to action sequences, but they're generally not going to dominate the movies. And a lot of it is going to be spent on some bullshit character stuff that's not even that good. Does that make sense? That's what I'm saying. I was kind of craving something like solo leveling for a while because I was just like, at a certain point, I want to be able to enjoy, I want a new shonen anime series or whatever that I can follow where I don't have to wait like 3-4 episodes to get to the really cool action sequence and spend all the time in between on shitty character stuff or basic character stuff. I just want action all the time with like a decent character to follow all the way through. That's all I wanted. That's why I loved solo leveling so much, because it was the perfect viewing experience for that. Anyway, continuing on. Dragon will fight Garling, and Sabo will fight either Kainu, Shamrock, or Nerona. I don't know about that. Or Nerona Tori, Imu's daughter. JWP, thanks for gifting 5 subs or memberships. Thanks so much, man. I hope you're enjoying One Piece right now, because it is fucking phenomenal right now. I know I am. Thanks, as usual, for coming through this stream and just gifting the people of chat and obviously myself memberships. We all really appreciate it. Everybody say thanks to JWP for swooping through again and dropping us some drop-in memberships. Debilaro Alice is basically Baki? No, because Baki is too like Baki is genuinely the opposite. It's or not the opposite. One, Baki's animation is fucking god awful. I wish I could enjoy it more because it does give me close to what I want, but the animation is truly god awful. Like the way Netflix did it. It's just so ridiculous and silly, and it has its moments that sometimes it's engaging, but the animation is very hard to genuinely enjoy. The problem with Baki is that it takes its character stuff too seriously. So like heading into a fight, or even during a fight, you will have like 80% of the episode being some stupid ass backstory or some sort of Baki version of philosophical shit or something like that. Or in between the fight, like you will have to go long stretches of Baki where it's like trying to do some really weird, stupid character stuff, but in the Baki where you can't even take it seriously. Solo leveling, it's just get to it. Get to it. You got some character stuff in between here and there, but you're going to be getting to a fight by the end of the episode, almost every single episode, right? And during the fight, it's just the fight. You're rocking with the fight. The fight is the fight, right? Like it's nonstop, it's fast-paced, high quality, all that stuff. It's good shit. You get a little bit of character stuff maybe over the course of the fight, but you're mainly getting the fight. That's what I was kind of craving. Give me that John Wick energy. New Poppy, thanks for the 5. Chapter 1126 explains how Shanks gets his scar. I explained this in my YouTube short. Not trying to promote, don't want to gatekeep. Chapter 1126 explains how Shanks gets his scar. All right, let's take a look at 1126 real quick. Let's see what was solved. Oh, wait, are you talking about 1126? It explains how Shanks gets his scar. I don't know about that. I don't know. Maybe we'll have to look into this later. Maybe let me take a look at your short real quick. So New Poppy, let's go to channel. Shorts. How Shanks gets his scar. Okay, I have to mute this. Hold on. If it's a good theory, I will send people there. Oh fuck, I can't watch this. This is too long. I'm sorry, this is too long. The short is not a short. It's very long. Do you like Dragon Ball Z? Dragon Ball Z I watched when I was younger. My perspective on Dragon Ball Z is always going to be complicated. Let's be clear here, because you're like, well, people are like, well, then why do you like One Piece, etc. I'm just talking about certain One Piece has obviously phenomenal writing, right? One Piece has phenomenal writing. Like any series that has it depends on the mindset I have when I'm trying to watch an anime. Does that make sense? The mindset that I have. So when I'm trying to watch like and it also depends on how good the anime's writing is, right? So when the period of time that I watched Solo Leveling also happened to be a specific period of time where I wasn't interested in getting super hooked on like a particularly deep or compelling story, and I didn't want to sit through really powerful character backstories or character arcs, etc. I actually was just itching to watch some action. And one of the reasons I really ended up enjoying Solo Leveling was because before that, what I was watching was like the thing I was watching to scratch my itch for action was Invincible Season 3. And Invincible gives you some good action, but it also gives you some long stretches of absolute god-awful dog shit character writing for its gigantic cast of 50 fucking random-ass side characters who are all shallow as fuck, but who are with terrible, terrible dialogue. And it's just like, I would watch Invincible episodes just hoping to get to like the next action scene, and I'm fucking watching them fucking like talk about Duplicate's twin brother and the tragedy of him or whatever the fuck. And it's just so shitty and so dumb. And I have to watch like 45 minutes of that to maybe get to an action sequence, or maybe nothing happens that episode and you watch the next episode or something, right? So I was like, man, I wish that there was just some shonen action series I could watch that could just be getting to it, right? I'm not looking for the next One Piece. I'm not looking for the next Hunter x Hunter. I just want something that scratches that itch. And then I watched Solo Leveling and I was like, this was it. I didn't know that this was possible. Woke Meister GT, thanks for the 6. Your take on One Piece's biggest plot hole in One Piece. Katakuri not destroying the Thousand Sunny before the Straughts arrive. Katakuri not destroying the Thousand Sunny before the Straughts arrive. That's a good point. I mean, there is the argument that it's made of atom wood, and it's like the sturdiest type of wood. So the Thousand Sunny does take a lot of damage and generally survive, but it's not like indestructible. Why didn't Katakuri destroy the Thousand Sunny? That's a good question. Maybe they saw it as a valuable ship, so they wanted to save it? That's my only thought. Maybe they saw it as a valuable ship, so they wanted to save it. It's also possible Katakuri was just so confident that the Straughts wouldn't get away, that he saw no need to destroy the ship. You know what I mean? Because it's like going DEFCON. I don't know. Like, let's think. So if let's say the police are trying to catch some muggers that are running away from a crime scene or something, and so the police position themselves at the car of the muggers or whatever, right? And it's like, well, we know they're coming here, so we're waiting for him. We're gonna catch him when they get there. If they really want to be safe as fuck, they could like blow up the getaway vehicle or something, but that seems pretty extreme to do and unnecessary when you're that confident you're just gonna catch the muggers, right? I figure, maybe that's a terrible analogy, but I figure like the police, if they come across a getaway car, they're not just gonna blow up the car, because you just assume that you're gonna catch him, right? That's my simple thought as to why that might have been the case. And yeah, maybe the Thousand Sunnies looked at as like a valuable ship. Ships are valuable in the One Piece world. Thousand Sunnies pretty much the best ship that you can get. So you might just not have seen a need to just destroy the ship. I'm sure in hindsight, he would have, Katakuri's got future sight. If he had hindsight, I'm sure he'd be like, well, maybe we should have destroyed that ship. But yeah, it's just, you just don't necessarily think of it being a need in the moment, you know? Yeah, I think that follows. I think that logic follows. It's like, technically we could go that extra mile to do this, but you just view it as such a done deal. Like, well, they're coming right to us, and I'm fucking Katakuri, so I'm going to catch him, right? So I think Katakuri also underestimated Luffy a lot over the course of their... Like, if you go through all of Katakuri versus Luffy, it's clear that Katakuri underestimated Luffy for pretty much the entirety of the fight until the... Flampe scene, and then that's when he's like, okay, now I'm gonna stop looking down on you. But like the entire time, early part of the fight, Katakuri was just like, dude, there's like such a gigantic gap between you and me, this is a joke. So I think that might have just been part of it. I don't know, that's my headcanon explanation. JWP, thanks for the 10. Solo leveling is hilarious. I've watched it like 3 times because the action is good, but I know like 2 characters' names because that shit just does not matter. Just put the fights in the bag, bro. Yeah, that's basically it. Just put the fights. I would watch it for the fights and the aura. That's basically it. Mr. MMF2, thanks for the 20. Yo, more Jussie. Killing him is proof that we're getting some major power inflation. He's broken. Also, get that bum Hadruden out from the last epic panel. I don't think, I don't think, why did I say what do you call twice? I don't know if killing him's necessarily... I think Killingham's ability to create the giant army, that's really, really, really busted, right? I don't know for sure yet whether Killingham himself is supposed to be that strong. I guess we'll find out soon enough. A lot of it will come down to who is Killingham's opponent supposed to be. Killingham's ability on a large scale it's probably the most effective ability to fight against large forces in all of One Piece, right? That, maybe the Guruguru no Mi. It's an army in a box. And not just any army, it's it's probably the world's strongest foot soldiers, right? The world's strongest army, right? I've talked about this in past streams, videos, etc., but it's better than Kaido's entire army that he spent years developing, right? It's probably better than the Pacifista army, right? It's just a really, really unfair army that he's able to create out of thin air. I don't know if Killingham himself is that strong on his own. I imagine he's strong, like the God's Knights in general have shown themselves to be strong, but it's hard to say whether or not he is, like, what the level is supposed to be. I'm not personally on the train that like all the Gods Knights are going to be like admirable, comparable, or whatever. I think from what we've seen personally from Sommers and Gunko, my feeling is that they're supposed to be Yonko 1-ish or something like that in that range. Okay, whatever you feel that range is. And part of it is also, I think, as One Piece progresses further and further, and we get to see more of these stronger top tier characters fight, we will get more of an idea of like the nuances of the ranges that exist. Because I still remember just early, like in Marineford times, there was a period where, like, during Marineford, everyone's just fighting in skirmishes, so you're just getting an idea of how things kind of stack up. And it's not a clear idea, but it's kind of like, okay, so there's just Yonko commanders, they're very strong. And then as we progress through the New World, then we begin to get more nuances, where it's like, okay, Doflamingo probably falls towards like a third commander type figure, whereas obviously Marco's like a first commander. Someone like Rayleigh, who fought Kizaru, he's like a first mate level still or higher, right? That's what we get, more nuance as we kind of get to see more action. So like even saying like their first mate level or whatever, that's complicated because we might still get more gradations as to what that means. Like, what is the gap between a first mate and an admiral? Like, we might continue to get more of an understanding of that as we go. I don't think Killingham, Gunko, or Sommers, I don't think any of them are necessarily admiral level. I don't think any of them are like Kizaru. I just think that, I mean, I might be totally wrong on Killingham. I think it's interesting that the first time we saw Gunko fighting straight up was she soloed all those Straw Hats, right? So that was huge. Sommers, we cut to him, and it's like he basically beats down easily Saul and Robin, right? And Chopper obviously would be helpless in that situation. So these are impressive things, but not necessarily like admiral level things. And then Gaban obviously fucks up Sommers. With Killingham, the first thing that we see him do is like beating the Walrus teacher. So he kind of gets like the least significant initial showing out of any of the Gods Knights in terms of like straight up combat himself, right? But at the same time, I guess that's balanced out by how crazy his nightmare monsters are, right? I guess we just got to see with Killingham. We got to see with Killingham, like, what is he actually just 1v1 capable of doing? Yeah, get that bum Hadruden out of the last epic panel. Yeah, it's kind of crazy that Hadruden just turned out to be, he's low-key the most significant of the Straw Hat Grand Fleet at this point in time. New Poppy, thanks for the, and I don't think anyone would have imagined that. Please, it's only 2 minutes. Chapter 0, we get a hint when Shanks hides a scar. When recruit Yas OP. I would have to screen share the whole thing. I can't be watching that right now, man. But people, you guys can go click on New Poppy to go check out his channel, because he's got a short. It's got here, I'll drop the link to it. I'll drop the link to it in chat. So people can go check it out if they want to check it out. I may check it out later, and I'll let you know if I check it out later. Oh shit! This reminds me. Hold on. Everybody, hold up, everybody. Is Eagle Train and Gerence Rambo in here? Please raise your hands if Eagle Train and Gerence Rambo, if you're in here, raise your hands. Because I've got 2 supers from last chapter stream to discuss. Somebody let me know if Eagle Train and Gerence Rambo show up. Biba, thanks a lot. Can you give your take on Kizaru versus Luffy? I've seen people thinking Kizaru actually can beat Luffy and was actually the winner on Egghead. I don't want to give my take on Kizaru versus Luffy because I don't want to give my take on Kizaru. Because we've talked through this to death over the course of Egghead itself. We talked about it so much, and I got so sick of that same conversation. It's the same way I don't want to talk about Aokiji versus Garp. Because I like going on rants, right? But at a certain point, I tap out. Like, I have a limit. I don't want to talk about... Let me give you a quick list. All right? Here's a quick list of the things that I no longer want to talk about unless I get particularly triggered. I don't want to talk about Kizaru versus Luffy. I don't want to talk about Garp versus Aokiji and the entire Blackbeard Pirates, okay? I don't want to talk about Shanks Mihawk. I think that's it. I think those are the three. I don't want to talk about those three things, all right? If you want me to rant on those three things, I've got a plethora of streams from the past that you could go tune into and you can see the gist of my thoughts, okay? I think where I've reached now is almost a sort of Zen understanding. Actually, I'm kidding myself. I don't have a Zen understanding, but I like to believe I have a Zen, not a Zen understanding, Zen state of mind, right? I don't actually have a Zen state of mind, but I like to believe I have a Zen state of mind. See if this makes sense. I know logically in my head that none of this matters. Not because power scaling doesn't matter, because it does, but none of it matters because we are going to get more information as the story goes on. What do I mean by that? I mean that in the same way that, like, people debate it, like, for example, I remember pre-time skip, right? People would debate, like, okay, who's the strongest of the three admirals? That was a debate. And then you fast forward to post-time skip, and that debate is generally settled because we get more information as the story progresses, okay? Akainu, probably the strong, like, Akainu and Aokiji, probably the two strongest, a little bit ahead of Kizaru, probably. Or at the very least, I think it's generally accepted at this point that Akainu is strongest of the three admirals, right? But for pre-time skip, that was more of a debate, okay? Same with, like, who's the strongest, I'm trying to give examples that aren't controversial. How strong Doflamingo was, right? There was a lot of debate, I remember, during the Dressrosa arc of, like, how strong is Doflamingo? Some people had him as high as, like, above Marco. Some people said that, some people had him below Vista, so there was a pretty wide range, and I think as time went on, we don't have an exact understanding of how strong Doflamingo is, but we got enough information as the story progressed to be like, okay, he probably wasn't Yonko first mate level, right? He's probably closer to someone like Cracker, maybe even below Cracker, whatever you want to debate there, right? We just tend to get more matchups, more fights as the story progresses. Aokiji is going to fight again, right? Kizaru is going to fight again. Luffy's going to keep getting fights. We're going to keep getting more. Shanks is going to get fights. Mihawk is going to get more fights. We will get answers to, like, clear, definitive answers as the story progresses. Not clear, definitive as Oda's going to just have Shanks and Mihawk fight and be like, that's it, that's done, right? But we're going to get more information as the story goes on, right? And these debates that are now very speculative, they will become more clear as the story progresses. I think that when Oda does stuff like, when Oda doesn't, the biggest problem with One Piece power scaling is that Oda doesn't like making a lot of his characters look bad, at least the characters that he likes and thinks are cool, right? And he definitely doesn't like making Luffy look bad. So it creates this sort of situation where you're getting so many fights where there's, like, arguments that can, like, you can have a conclusion, but then there's arguments that are available to readers that they can fall back on to point out, well, this makes it more ambiguous, that makes it more ambiguous, whatever, right? That's the complicated part, right? That's why there's no point in going into Luffy versus Kizaru. We will get more information as the story progresses that will allow us to retroactively conclude, no, Luffy was definitely stronger, or no, Kizaru should have definitely won that fight, okay? So I don't feel like going into that, okay? I've given my takes on what the correct answer is in the past. I don't want to open that can of worms again. Aokiji Garp, I don't want to open that can of worms again. Shanks Mihawk, let's let both of them get some more fights or whatever, okay? I don't want to open up that can of worms again, okay? That's where I'm at this point in time. The only things I will confidently talk about are Law being a bum, Kid being a bum, and Sabo being a bum. Sabo may prove me wrong soon because I know Sabo is one of Oda's favorites, but those I'll talk about. Because those are pretty cut and dry. For those, I'm just like, well, Law and Kid never did anything impressive, right? They were around when some explosives went off that defeated Big Mom, but there's nothing else to really fall back on for them, you know? And Sabo, like, he stalled Fujitoro when Fujitoro wasn't trying at all. So that doesn't really give us much to go off of. And then he ran away from Gorosei. So there's nothing to really talk about for those characters, you know? Sabo beat Burgess. That's the biggest feat you can give Sabo. Anyway, Anyway, that's where I've come. This is my new pseudo Zen state of mind. I call it, it's not a real Zen state of mind because I know logically that's just how I should view it, which is that none of this matters because we'll find out soon enough, We'll find out, right? But at the same time, it's a fake Zen state of mind because I know that with enough comments, I will get triggered into talking about those things again. But at this moment, I'm maintaining the Zen. So you can't bait me into breaking the Zen. At this moment, the Zen is being maintained. I'm not going to discuss Luffy versus Kizaru. Noah Long, thanks for the 5. Just joined, so I don't know if it was said yet. Do you think Scopper just recognized the hockey or recognized that the hockey belongs to Emu? Let me look at this again. Let me look at Scopper's reaction, because that is an interesting point. Hey, now, this hockey is... I'm going to say... At the moment, I'll say just that maybe it's Scopper reacting to just the hockey being really strong. At the moment, I'll say it's just Scopper reacting to the hockey being really strong. It would be very interesting if the Roger Pirates have run into Emu in the past, though. JWP, thanks for the 10, man. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. So the God's Knights explanation panels have fruit names, but the Gorosei just had demon and or mythical creature names. Also, killing him can control which parts of his body go hybrid mode, like Marco. So interesting you bring that up, because I do actually talk about your first point in last week's, in this Tuesday's video, which is I think that for some, I think Emu, how to say, I think the Gorosei specifically have devil fruit abilities, or like pseudo devil fruit abilities granted to them by Emu, because I believe that Emu's devil fruit, right now, I believe that Emu's devil fruit is the sea devil fruit. It's the devil fruit of the being that people believe creates devil fruit powers, right? So a little bit of devil fruitception right there. Hence, with those powers, Emu is able to recreate the concept of devil fruits, right? He's able to recreate the concept of like mythical zones, for example. So he's able to give, just like the sea devil supposedly can grant devil fruit powers, Emu is able to give his most close subordinates, the Gorosei, what are functionally devil fruit powers. But they're not technically from devil fruits. They're from Emu's own ability, right? But they work like people think the sea devil's powers work, so Emu can kind of create devils that aren't actually devil fruit users, right? So they look like zone users, they act like zone users, they function like zone users, they have zone user abilities, but they're not actually Zoan users, at least from what their cards seem to suggest, right? Because they're not actually spawned from eating unique devil fruits. It's just a product of Emu, the sea devil's power to supposedly create devil fruit users, right? So it's like an imitation of reality, but the powers that they have are just as strong as like if they actually were devil fruit users. Sorry if that's like a long-winded explanation, but that's how I view the Gorosei, because what we understand from the Gorosei is that these are like the permanents, right? These are what Emu decides over time, like you guys are going to be my closest subordinates. So you guys are going to get special abilities given specifically by me, right? I feel like the God's Knights, they just have fruits, right? They're just given normal-ass devil fruits. Emu does seem to grant them immortality, right? So Emu gives the Gorosei immortality plus their Zoan abilities, right? And then for the rest of the God's Knights, he gives them immortality. Still question mark about Garling and why Garling has aged or whatever. But he seems to give them immortality, and and beyond that, they're given just normal-ass devil fruits, right? So the arrow fruit, the thorn fruit, Killingham's fruit, all of that stuff. So they're legitimate devil fruit users, whereas the Gorosei are like Emu-spawned devil fruit users. That's my understanding at this moment in time. Might be wrong about that, but that's my understanding right now. Killingham can control which parts of his body go hybrid mode like Marco. Yeah, it's interesting because I thought that I really thought he was already in hybrid mode. I think everybody thought he's already in hybrid mode. This is confusing. Maybe, yeah, it's like Marco. Maybe it's just, maybe Oda's a little fluid. I think maybe just for design purposes sometimes. Like, he's done this only with Marco so far that I can think of, that you can be like partially hybrid, partially not. I think that he's only done it with Marco, really. So I think that's kind of cool that Killingham can do that as well. I feel like there's not much to think about with that. I think it might just be for design purposes and what Oda thinks is cool. It's funny that Killingham's such like a devilish, evil-looking character, but at the same time, his fruit makes him look like such a goofy, silly light character. In fact, if we go back to the God's Knight's introduction, right? So like, is it what, 42 or something like that? Maybe that's too far. Um, when the Gods Knights were first all introduced, they... Where are they? Yeah, when the Gods Knights were first all introduced, it seems like Killingham... This is really curious. Killingham's personality just seems to be straight up different. I don't want to screen share the panels because it's a two like chapter review or chapter discussion streams. You don't want to show any panels, even if it's from previous chapters. But when Killingham first shows up, he almost seems anxiety ridden. This is why a lot of people also felt like maybe he's going to be an Usopp opponent or something. He's like, like first of all, the expression, the horse, etc. Not horse, but it just looks like a goofy type character. It looks kind of silly, right? He's like, I'm in big trouble. I'm in trouble, big trouble. I'm late. I'm very late. I was half asleep. Where am I supposed to go again? He just seems like a sort of goofy little character. And the expressions he has are so fucking cute and silly. Like, look in chapter 1140 when he and Somers realize where they are. They have like a big reaction that's just like really silly. And Killingham just seems like a kind of a soft character. Some people even... And when he closes his eyes, look at him in the final page of 1140. He closes his eyes. He looks like a cute little, silly, cute character. A lot of people, when Killingham was first introduced, actually theorized that Killingham might be a celestial dragon who ends up being redeemed because he just seems like a little bit different in vibe from the rest of them. Lee Peace, thanks for the 10, man. Whitebeard is the strongest bench press, but not the best fighter. Haki is good, but not a master. Supreme Blade, but not a swordsman, and a strong fruit that's not awakened. Garp and Roger didn't fight after God Valley. Why? All right, so we got a lot to unpack there. Okay, Whitebeard is the strongest, but not the best fighter. I think that... So I feel like at the very least... I don't want to speak too much on this, but this is at least what I've kind of observed from generally, like, watching anime, manga, etc. The way that the Japanese refer to strongest, right? It's like... It's a little bit different than you see in the West. Because, like, in the West, when you say, like, oh, who's the strongest, right? You're talking usually about, like, physical bench press strength. Like, oh, who's the strongest out of us? Oh, well, that guy's the strongest, right? Like, that guy can lift the most. In Japan, like, you know, if you think of, like, Jujutsu Kaisen or something, you think, like, oh, Gojo's the strongest, right? Sukuna's the strongest. Like, in general, in anime manga, when the phrase the strongest is used, it generally means, like, as a fighter, right? Like, as a fighter overall. Not just your bench press or something like that, right? It's just, like, Gojo doesn't have the best bench press, but they're going to call him the strongest, right? In general, in stories or whatever that are Japanese, I usually see characters that are referred to as the strongest as just being the strongest as a fighter. Like, who can beat people up the most or whatever, right? I've also noticed that, like... strongest is also used in Japan to mean best. So, like, best in a specific category. So, like, this person's the strongest X or whatever also means, like, the best X, which is a little, again, pretty different than the United States or, like, Western use of the word strongest. We usually refer to specifically physical strength when referring to that. So when Oda says Whitebeard is the strongest man, or, like, Whitebeard has the title of the strongest man, I don't think it means bench press. I think that it means, like, he is the strongest fighter overall. People who have a better understanding of Japanese, please clarify. This was just my personal observation from watching anime manga for so long. Haki is good, but not a master. I feel like Whitebeard in his prime was a monster at Haki, right? Because he could do, he had a crazy Conqueror's Haki. He could clash with Roger in terms of Conqueror's Haki and everything like that. And then on top of that, Observation Haki we didn't get much info on. But when he got stabbed by Squard, Marco basically implied that, like, Prime Whitebeard would have Observation Haki way too good to be caught off guard. So I imagine... And, like, keep this in mind. Whitebeard was literally able to, in his sleep, detect Ace and stop Ace regularly. Back when Ace was at least Jinbei level, if not stronger. Whitebeard was able to solo Jinbei or Ace in his sleep, right? So that's kind of crazy. Right? I would add that, Yeah, I just feel like that has to be something Observation Haki related. So maybe Observation wasn't Whitebeard's biggest strength. He also sensed Odin coming. We didn't see a ton of stuff from Whitebeard for observation, but I imagine Whitebeard was generally very, very good at hockey, and at the very least in terms of like offensive conquerors hockey, he was very strong. Supreme Blade, not a swordsman, and strong fruit that's not awakened. The not awakened fruit is very curious. And I really, the awakenings of fruits, that's just generally a point of confusion for me in terms of like Oda introducing that in One Piece, because here's my feeling. My feeling is that the concept of the fruit awakening is something that Oda like designed for Luffy, because I believe that Oda always planned on Luffy ultimately being like this, turning into this deity version of himself, right? Like the full-fledged version of himself. But Oda had to nerf Luffy for the first like 80% of the story, right? So like a more, like Luffy had to work his way into being able to turn into that final form, right? But I think when Oda just came up with that concept of like, okay, well, the fruit can awaken, that also opened the floodgates for Oda being like, well, that means that like technically that doesn't that mean that like every devil fruit can like awaken and power up? And I don't know if Oda like ever wanted to sit down and think of like what the awakened form of every devil fruit is. And so that kind of leads to the situation where it feels almost random, where it's like, okay, Zoan users, we see a lot of awakened Zoan users. Why? Because you don't need to think that much to write these awakened Zoan users, right? Lucci in his awakened form, it's just like a stronger version of Lucci, right? Kaku in his awakened form, it's just a stronger version of Kaku the giraffe, right? Even Yamato, mythical Zoan, in her awakened form, it's just a stronger version of her normal fruit, right? So Zoan awakenings are easy. Luffy's the only Zoan that really drastically changes in his abilities, but that's because that was Oda's concept. So Oda's like, okay, well, it's easy for me to crank out some Zoan awakenings or whatever. Okay, but then what about these other devil fruits? Like, there's so many other powerful devil fruits out there, like the Guru Guru no Mi. Obviously, like, what are Logia awakenings, right? Oh, Vegapunk even hints at Logia awakenings being different or important, but we'll get to that later. Or Logia being different or important or whatever. We'll get to that later. But then Oda's like, okay, but then what about, like, Law and Kid? Okay, well, I need Law to get stronger and I need Kid to get stronger, so how about these characters get awakenings? But then it's like, okay, but then why didn't Big Mom have an awakening? Because Big Mom's so much more advanced as a pirate, as a fighter, experience, etc., than Law and Kid, so why doesn't she have an awakening? Why doesn't Kaido, well, Kaido's his own, whatever. Oda could have easily done an awakening for him. But then why doesn't Whitebeard have an awakening, right? That's why it's confusing, because it just feels like with the awakening concept, it became like whatever Oda can conveniently think of an awakening for, and then other characters who are really strong, he didn't give them an awakening. Unless Whitebeard used to have an awakening for Guru Guru no Mi and can no longer use it. Like, Doflamingo doesn't always use his awakening. Katakuri doesn't always use his awakening. Law, Kid don't always use their awakenings. It's tricky. Maybe we get a flashback to God Valley and Whitebeard's using the awakened Guru Guru no Mi. Maybe. Or maybe Blackbeard is going to be how we see the awakened Guru Guru no Mi. Garp and Roger didn't fight after God Valley. Why? Did they not fight after God Valley? I feel like they probably did, because Roger implies that it's a regular thing. In Chapter 0, it's implied that Garp regularly kind of runs into Roger. During the chapter where Roger and Whitebeard meet up, Roger pirates had just finished beating up some Marines, and Roger's talking about, like, why didn't you send Garp at the very least? So, like, I feel like it was still a recurring thing. Bane, thanks for the 2. The build-up isn't there yet for Luffy to face Emu. I feel like this is the build-up, because Luffy's not... I think it's almost perfect in that Luffy's not just coming face-to-face with Emu himself. Luffy's going to come face-to-face with an avatar of Emu, right? I think that that's a really good decision, because it plays it... You want to have Luffy encounter that villain in some way beforehand, but you want to, like... You don't want to ruin the big showdown right away, right? So... Just having Luffy run into Gunko being possessed by Emu, that to me that's perfect, because he's not actually going up against Emu. He's going up against like a puppet of Emu, right? That to me that works really well. I like that. I personally like that. I think that this is the build-up. Luffy's running into a puppet of Emu that sets up who Emu likely is in Luffy's mind. Luffy's already sensed the haki. He knows what a big deal Emu is or whatever, and Luffy's now going to, be on a train, basically heading towards actually meeting Emu down the line, right? It's kind of like it's not the same thing, but it's kind of like Luffy spoke to Big Mom on Denden Mushi twice before finally running into Big Mom, right? Luffy spoke to Doflamingo on Denden Mushi before running into Doflamingo. Luffy spoke to Saturn on Denden Mushi before running into Saturn. I feel like this is a more dramatic equivalent of Luffy speaking to a Denden Mushi before finally facing Emu, right? It's more dramatic in that it's like, it's not just talking over the phone. It's like Luffy's running into a little avatar, a little puppet of Emu's, have some sort of confrontation with that puppet, but the actual showdown is going to be down the line. Like, it's not yet time for Luffy to meet the big bad, but he can meet the mouthpiece, and it's kind of like meeting Phantom Ganon before facing off against real Ganon, right? I think it adds to the buildup of meeting Ganon down the line, personally. Law Kid. Hey kid, you have Awakening, right? Kid, yeah, duh, of course I do. It's so stupid. Yeah, no comment. The Black Blur, thanks for the 5. Wouldn't the Gura Gura no Mi Awakening be similar to the Ope Ope no Mi, where Law can imbue room into objects or being, but with Whitebeard, it with quakes? I'm gonna be real. I still don't fully understand. Does anyone want to explain to me how? First of all, let's get streamlines up to 150 real quick. I still don't fully understand Law's Awakening, because I think I just don't fully understand Law's Awakening. I get what it does. I don't understand why it works that way. Because he coats his sword with room, and then he can insert that room into the opponent. But I don't understand why the opponent can now be affected by room when before his room couldn't affect Kaido and Big Mom. He was like, well, I can't actually move them or do things to them with room when he was doing normal room, right? He can't. It's like, I can't swap them. I can't do stuff like that. But then once he does the Awakening, he somehow, how does it work? Can someone explain that? Like how he put it on his blade. Yeah, but why is that good? So he puts the room on his blade, and then it's just able to go through the opponent. I guess it works I guess it bypasses hockey or whatever for whatever reason. So that's really good. I guess I just don't. So, and now if you're saying that Whitebeard could do the equivalent, it's like putting the Gura Gura no Mi on his spear or something, but I feel like he can already basically, the Gura Gura no Mi is already on his fist. So I guess I don't really fully understand. Or Whitebeard can touch you and the quake goes off inside you, maybe something like that. Is that what you're saying? 10K message retracted. Sorry, I don't know what your message was. People are asking about Mosa. Mosa's a super interesting question at this point. Because a lot of people are saying Jarl. I'm very confused about and why was the room able to clash with... Why was it able to clash with the Gura Gura no Mi? Because I thought it's just like an intangible thing. First, he used himself as the epicenter for the room. Now he can use the epicenter without himself in the middle. Okay. I guess that makes sense. Why does it matter that his sword is the epicenter? Isn't it like this? Why does that matter? Ender says, I understand Law's Awakening as making an opponent the room itself as opposed to having to get an opponent into a regular room. Oh, that's interesting. That's cool. That makes sense. But then why is it able to clash with the Gura Gura no Mi? Because it doesn't seem like it has, like, destructive force properties or, like, physical force properties. It's more of, like, a intangible concept. Bane, thanks for the 2. Oda writes Hockey Bloom / Awakening just for good guys. Yeah. Why didn't the bad guys develop it at some point? I'm a little confused by that. What was I saying? I saw a comment about this. King AP07 says, more, you should do a stream on which One Piece character can bench the most. Are abilities allowed or not allowed? If abilities are allowed, I feel like Luffy can bench the most because he can just go giant form with Nika, right? And I know he can bench press more than the fucking giants of Elbaf. So I feel like I think the simple fact that Luffy could grab Kizaru and Saturn at the same time, and like just his grip is too strong for two Admiral-ish level characters to be able to physically force themselves free. Luffy's probably just the physically strongest character in One Piece using gear 5th and everything. If it's just base mode, like the battleship bags rule, no hockey, nothing, no hockey, no devil fruit. Is it maybe Kaido? Kaido Big Mom, something like that? Yeah, Mosa's a really good question. Because, people are saying Jarl. Does Jarl remember the situation that happened? And it's like he's having memories of that, and like he's like split personality or something, so he talks to Loki to recount memories of that. Jarl makes sense as the character that would have given Loki the Den Mushi. But then Jarl was also talking about like a really scary incident. You know what I mean? He's talking about a really scary incident when Loki first was talking to him, and it didn't seem like he had just come out of some really scary incident. So I don't know. I also feel like, let me see, the chapter Loki's talking to Jarl, it's like I feel like Jarl is occupied during that chapter, right? I feel like maybe he's not occupied. Maybe it's the previous chapter. So we get in 1130. Where the fuck do we get Loki talking to Jarl? We get Loki talking to Jarl in chapter 1134. You're almost as bored as me. Okay. Yeah, no, it might be Jarl. Because he's saying, are you still traumatized by that experience you were telling me about? I am. Even now, the memory makes me tremble uncontrollably. That's why you're so weak, Shaggy. You don't want to get those fools, put them down for good, or they'll come back for vengeance. It doesn't sound like the way Jarl would talk, but it might be some alternate personality things going on here. That's very possible. Milk, thanks for the 5. Hey, Morge, do you think Marijua is literally or metaphorically on fire? Other theorists say it's literally on fire. In my head, it's metaphorical. I'm going with the straightforward, it's literal, just because like it's being raided or something. I feel like when the Revolutionaries raided, there was fire as well, like the previous time, so I don't think that'd be out of the norm. But maybe it's not literal. Maybe there's... I feel like if they need forces, then that means that there's some battle going on. If there's some battle going on, there's potentially fire. I think that follows to me. I'm not overthinking that too much. 10K, thanks for the 5. Do you think Sanji awakening conquers Haki would cheapen the development of other characters in the story? Usopp, Jinbei, Law, Sabo, is it necessary? I mean, to me, I'm of the opinion that out of the characters you listed right there, I think Usopp's the only one that's written to be like a Conquerors Haki user type. In terms of like what Conquerors Haki users are written like. I feel like Sanji falls into the same character type as Law and Sabo. But out of the three of them, he would make the most sense to get Conquerors Haki. So Sanji awakening it would be cool. And I don't think it would be out of the norm or strange or whatever. But Law and Sabo don't strike me as Conquerors Haki types. In fact, they're written very dramatically. Like, Sabo is written very differently from Ace and Luffy because I don't think he's supposed to be the Conquerors. He's the odd man out, right? Law is written very differently from Luffy and Kid. They are these conquerors, like conqueror spirit types. Like, they do not back down. They have this larger than life will. They're written very differently than Law. I think a lot of people confuse the trend of Conqueror's Haki as just being like, well, the character is just brave, right? Like Law's brave, Sabo's brave, right? It's not about bravery, like because then every fucking other character in One Piece would have it. Conqueror's Haki, it's like this reserved thing that's this sort of otherworldly sort of like strength of spirit and nature that like is very unyielding and does not and refuses to back down, right? Which is very different than a Law or a Sabo. I would say it doesn't characterize Sanji to me in some ways, but it does in other ways. So I think Sanji may get Conqueror's Haki. I think Gaban seemingly having it is a huge positive sign for Sanji maybe awakening it. And with Usopp, that's what's cool about Usopp, which is that Usopp in general, he has this natural tendency to run, right? He has this natural tendency to run. But when Usopp stands 10 toes down and like there's something that awakens inside of him and you can see it and you can see the swap in character, then Usopp also becomes as resolute and unwavering as like the greatest Conqueror's Haki users in One Piece. Like that's what makes him such an interesting little case study, which is like, I wonder if Usopp can get it. Does it make sense that Usopp could get it or not? I don't know. The Book of Eli, thanks for the 2. The Opie affects the soul, example, personality switch. That's a good point. I think the personality switch I just always viewed as like a funny, quirky thing that Oda included in the story, because like body swapping is always like this funny thing, especially in anime and manga. But it does grant immortality, which is probably tied to the soul in some sense. So yeah, that's a really good point. I never thought about it like that. Not really an ostrich. Thanks for the 10. What if awakenings only happen to people who have created their fruit if it didn't exist already? Who could have created their fruit if it didn't exist already? Whitebeard would never desire such a destructive fruit enough to create it and could never awaken. That's an interesting concept. But I also think that... I think that's a complicated way to think about it, because I think in general, Oda does match the fruit pretty perfectly to the user. So it's like, I don't know if Whitebeard would have concocted such a destructive fruit, but like the fruit is meant to match Whitebeard's own, like Whitebeard's like a force of nature. Like he's a very, like even before we ever got the reveal of what Whitebeard's fruit was, you see in his first interaction with Shanks, right? Like the first scene with him and Shanks, Whitebeard is the sort of like tempestuous, like physical force of nature, and once he goes into a rage, it's like there's no stopping him. He just becomes this force, right? The man who shakes the world is supposed to be both literal and like metaphorical and literal, right? When he's getting mad at Roger and Odin in chapter like 966 or whatever, like that's represented by the sea beginning to shake around him, like, and that's the Gurugurumi, but like it's also just reflective of Whitebeard's own temperament, right? And like the physical force that he represents, the like mental, emotional storm that he can kind of be, right? I think like Big Mom's fruit perfectly fits her. She wants to be this all-powerful mother who can like create the exact world of perfectly obedient family and like subordinates that all obey her, right? Like, so I don't know if that exactly makes perfect sense. I don't know. I think that's an interesting theory. Milk, thanks for the 2. Usopp's observation sees Luffy and Law in Dressrosa. That's true, but I wonder if being able to see the outlines is the same as Luffy just like instinctively knowing without even seeing, right, that it's Chopper. I think that might be a little bit different. I think we need a bit more clarification on observation haki to fully understand. Because like we know like Fujitora, he can also see the outlines of people when he's like blind and stuff. We saw a shot of that at the end of Dressrosa. He can see what people, like their shape, right? You can see their shape fine. So Usopp could see Luffy and Law's shape just fine. I don't know if Usopp could just like intuitively know exactly where Zoro is on the island, or where like Kiros is on the island or something like that. 10K, thanks for the 2. If Sanji gets Conqueror's Haki, should Usopp definitely get it? I'm never going to say Usopp should definitely get it, but I think that it would be one of the most powerful moments in the series if like Usopp awakens Conqueror's Haki, and it turns out that he had that in him all along, because I feel like that's always been kind of the story for Usopp, which is that he is so much more than he realizes, right? He kind of keeps going through the cycle of like, he's so scared, so afraid of everything, right? But then a certain moment comes where he just locks in and you can't move him. And he has like if you look through the story, right? The Straw Hats that Oda most frequently uses to display great moments of extreme will, determination, endurance, just taking a lot of punishment and refusing to back down. The top 3 are Luffy, Zoro, and then Usopp. It's Usopp who's actually number 3. Oda doesn't really do that as much with Sanji. It's like the big moments of extreme willpower, taking a lot of damage, like being beaten to an inch of your life and refusing to back down or whatever. Luffy, Zoro, and then Usopp. That's like the strongest in terms of like just pure spirit. And that's not to get Sanji fans upset, because I still think it's totally on board that Sanji could get Conqueror's Haki. It's just that's less frequent, right? That's less frequent that happens in the story. Whereas there's like a dozen scenes I can think of with Usopp where it's just like, holy shit, what an insane, like Oda's really painting Usopp as this sort of figure alongside Luffy and Zoro who have this crazy endurance and willpower to just keep going no matter what. And the difference, of course, is that Usopp is just a normal dude, and that's what makes it so interesting. Like, he's a normal dude, but when it comes down to it, his spirit is right up there with, like, Luffy and Zoro in terms of just, like, taking so much more than he should believably be able to take. James, thanks a lot. Mosa is a celestial dragon under attack right now and before by revolutionaries. That is possible. That's definitely possible. If it's Jarl, it's just confusing because it's just like... Yarrow could be a huge misdirection, right? Just a huge misdirection because it's like, oh, the Jarl's under attack right now, so he's saying bye to Loki. But then it's like, why doesn't he just tell who he is to Loki? He doesn't speak exactly like Loki does. It's just confusing. And it's also just like, maybe there's some mistaken identity thing going on there, but whoever Mosa is seems to have the memory of what afflicted him. And so Loki should be able to also recognize that same memory because they were both there for Harold's whatever, you know? Yeah. Best friend Charlos. Yeah, it could be a celestial dragon. So Jarl is the easy answer. Some celestial dragon we have yet to meet. Like the simple answer is like some character we have yet to meet, because Oda often does that. He sets up some mystery of like, who is this mystery character? Who are like we're leading up to some character, like we're trying to solve who a certain character is, and then it turns out we haven't even met that character yet, right? That's pretty common in One Piece. Imagine Mosa as an enemy like the Holy Knights law. Yeah, I don't know. Some people say Shirahoshi, but Shirahoshi just doesn't look like that, you know? Could be Louis or not. That would be crazy if Louis or not's still alive. Maybe some dude in Heaven Realm. That would be really cool. Oh, did I see/notice the person approaching Nami's group? Says Abdallah? No. What the fuck? Let me see. The person approaching Nami's group. Did I just straight up miss that? I don't see anyone approaching Nami's group. When did this happen? Master Dory, Master Brogy. I don't see anyone approaching Nami's group. That's an interesting observation, but I just don't see someone. What's going on? What are you referring to? Could someone point me to what's being referred to? Yeah, I guess I just don't see it. I don't see it. I think I just missed it. I'm combing the chapter carefully. Things have really spiraled out of control. Yeah, I don't see it. I don't see anyone approaching Nami's group. What are you referring to? The snail has feminine eyelashes. Imagine Mosa's Vegapunk. Oh, that'd be crazy. But I don't know. Doesn't make sense if it's Celestial Dragon, because remember when Loki met the Holy Knights, he called them scum. Maybe they haven't talked that much about stuff. The Black Blur, thanks for the 2. If Usopp gets Conqueror's Haki, then all East Blue 5 need Conqueror's Haki. No, Nami just doesn't fit it at all. Nami doesn't fit Conqueror's Haki in the slightest. Like, not even remotely. Like, there's nothing. And I love Nami as a character, but she is not even close to that type of character. Never once in the story portrayed as that type of character. Broly, thanks for the 2. What if Luffy used Voice of All Things for Chopper? I think that that's the case. I talk about that in the chapter review also. I do think that Luffy, I think I mentioned it earlier in streams. In this stream, I think Luffy did use Voice of All Things. I think that's something that will be explored a little bit more. Abdullah Sharif says, see the exclamations. This is your homeland. What the hell are you doing? Open your eyes. Is that... I don't think that means that someone's approaching. That just means that's hammering in the intense emotion of the moment, right? The snail is for winter weather, not supposed to look like anyone. Oh, yeah, that's an interesting idea. Most of it might be someone from the Revolutionary Army. Does anyone see Zunisha as one of the demon monsters in one of the pages of the last chapter? No, but I do see like more animals and shit. The demon monsters are just a cool concept because like it's genuinely really... I think sometimes Oda has the concept of like very difficult foot soldiers to defeat, right? Like he did with the pacifistas or the gifters. But then in practice, it kind of becomes meaningless because, like, at the end of the day, they're just shown getting taken out easily by characters regardless. So it doesn't feel that significant. But this is a little bit different because the nightmare monsters are so huge that even just seeing, like, a Straw Hat, like, I don't know how Nami would fight one of those giant monsters, right? Like, seeing a Straw Hat take out, like that skeleton or something would be pretty crazy. This is the first time that we've got foot soldiers for an army that are genuinely so imposing and powerful that it legitimately feels like a significant challenge, right? Like the army itself, the composition of the army itself feels like there's extreme threat and danger involved in just fighting the basic enemies of the army, right? Like, when it was the gifters in Onigashima, I remember there was some panel of, like, establishing, like, even Zoro was like, damn, these gifters are no joke. But then as the fight progresses, it's like, it doesn't really matter, right? Like, it's just, ultimately, it's fodder fighting at the fodder or whatever, right? This is the first time that it's... I guess the numbers are the closest we've had to this, where it was like, okay, you can't just roll over a number. Like, you got to use, like, a significant move, like a named move like Brook does or like Luffy does or whatever. But at the end of the day, even the numbers are pretty tame and simple. It's not a big deal to take out a number. This is the first time where it's like, I don't fucking know how Chopper beats one of these things. I don't know how Usopp beats one of these things. I don't know how a lot of the Straw Hats beat things that are this size. Because they are essentially, those nightmare creatures of Killingham's, they're essentially numbers proportionally to numbers, right? Like if you took what a number from Onigashima is like, they are a number to a number, right? Like they're to, you get what I'm saying? Like they are relative, what a human is to a number, they are that relative to a number. I don't know why I'm explaining this so poorly, but you get what I'm saying, right? I might be exaggerating slightly, but that's kind of the scale that it feels like. Meek, thanks for the 5. Favorite part of the chapter was seeing Chopper do the not accepting a compliment gag for the first time in forever. Yeah, and that felt good, especially coming off of... That's what the gag's supposed to be like, coming off of fucking live-action Chopper butchering the gag. Prophet Glutton, thanks for the... I'm glad that Chopper got a bit of a highlight this chapter, too. I hope that we continue to see him shine as a bit of like a character, not just like a accompanying talking side pet, basically. Prophet Glutton, thanks for the 5. So do you think Sanji is locked in to have Conqueror's Haki now, seeing what Gabon can do? I mean, a dude can even use Conqueror's Haki in Fusion. I think I'm 50-50 on Sanji having Conqueror's Haki. I think there's a very solid chance at this point. Like, I do think it's legitimately very powerful. Powerful. I think the chance is very, very high. I'm still 50-50 just because I'm genuinely confused as to why Oda seems to have not advanced Sanji Haki-wise at all over the course of the entire 600 chapters or 500 chapters of the New World. 550 chapters at this point, right? Post-time skip. He's just... Sanji, in terms of Haki, is exactly the same as he was day one. And instead, Oda went this really surprisingly bizarre route. Like, now we just take it for granted that, okay, Sanji, he's a fucking... cyborg, android, exoskeleton using agent of science or something. If you told a One Piece fan that, like, 6 years ago, before, or like, whatever, 6 years ago maybe, like before Whole Cake Island, 7 years ago, if you told a One Piece fan that, they would just be like, What the fuck are you even fucking talking about? That has nothing to do with Sanji's character. That makes no fucking sense. Obviously, Sanji's gonna keep improving through haki and like improve his observation haki and get good armament and stuff like that. And maybe he'll even get a Conqueror's haki or whatever. Like, that's what a Sanji fan would have told you like 7 years ago. If you legitimately sat down and told them, so here's what's gonna happen. Sanji is secretly from a family of Power Rangers and he has like a super strong exoskeleton, and because he was designed in a lab to be like that, and he's the warrior of science, people would be like, what the fuck do you mean he's the warrior of science? That's the most stupid ass shit I ever heard. It has nothing to do with anything we've ever heard of for this character so far in the story. And yet here we are, right? So I am genuinely confused as to why Oda wrote in that whole route for Sanji if Sanji's just going to get good at haki like everybody else anyway. That is where I'm kind of confused. To me, my question mark is kind of like, is Oda just making Sanji his own thing, like his own unique type of fighter in the story that eschews the traditional haki route, and Sanji's just this unique figure? Because otherwise, like, what the fuck is the point of all of that? Because, like, you could even say, well, it was to write Sanji, like, this really good character arc from, like, Whole Cake Island to Wano or whatever, but, like, you could have the same character arc coming out of Whole Cake Island, right? Same exact character arc, because coming out of Whole Cake Island, none of us even knew that Sanji actually had an exoskeleton. Coming out of Whole Cake Island, we thought the story arc for Sanji coming out of Whole Cake Island was that it's okay that Sanji is not this exoskeleton wielding superhuman like his brothers, because Sanji is really strong just on his own. And the idea was that Sanji's never going to use that raid suit because it betrays his own values and morals. So the whole message coming out of Whole Cake Island was that Sanji doesn't need to be like his brothers because he can just be super strong on his own. And we assumed that he would continue to grow through haki, all that stuff, right? Then we get to Wano and it's like, no, the arc is actually something about Sanji committing to this in order to blah, 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 blah. Like, he's not going to use the raid suit. He used the raid suit for a bit, but then he's not going to use the raid suit, but he's going to have the exoskeleton. A lot of it's just like, why go down this route of having him have the exoskeleton when he could have just been like, you know what, Sanji's got good armament. He improves his armament haki in Wano, right? Because then you continue with the messaging that was seemingly established in Whole Cake, which is that Sanji does not need to be like his brothers. He can actually just continue to grow strong as a normal human without these sort of cybernetic enhancements. But then Wano was like, no, he does actually need the cybernetic enhancements. And that's his route to getting stronger. So it was just like, whatever. And there's still, I'm not trying I love the writing that came with Sanji in that whole scene with Queen still. But I'm just saying that, like, from that scene, I was kind of just like, okay, if we are going kind of the reverse direction that we thought from Whole Cake Island with Sanji here, then it seems like Oda is just not, he's had ample opportunity. It seems like he's not progressing Sanji in terms of haki. No improved observation, never even showed black armament coding, period, like the basic level of armament haki, let alone Rio and the advanced haki everyone's doing in Wano. And certainly no trace of Conqueror's haki when, like, Luffy and Zoro are out there, like, using advanced Conqueror's haki already, right? So there's a lot of things there that just seem to suggest to me that if Oda's going this really surprising route that seems so random for Sanji based on the first, 800 chapters of the story, this bizarre warrior of science exoskeleton route or whatever, it seems like a very roundabout way of basically just avoiding having to give Sanji a lot of haki power-ups, and giving him a route to still becoming a top-tier character by the end of the day, even if he's not supposed to be a Conqueror's haki user like Luffy and Zoro. So that was kind of like what it seemed like Oda was doing with the character to me at that point in time. Now it's like, okay, well, if Sanji is going to become really good at haki like Luffy and Zoro, then what the fuck was the point of the exoskeleton? Because you can kind of just skip that whole step and just make Sanji get good at armament haki in Wano or some shit. I don't know. You can just skip that. Like, it's the same, like, Zoro doesn't need, like, Sanji and Zoro, like, Sanji always kept pace with Zoro, just, like, equal, not equal, whatever, right? But Sanji and Zoro are always, like, keeping pace just without devil fruit shenanigans like Luffy, right? Why not just have Sanji improve his haki like Zoro's improving his haki, and then, like, you kind of keep that same thing, right? Because I see somebody saying, like, well, you need to get Sanji to be as strong as Luffy and Zoro, but you could just do that with just having him improve his haki, right? If you're going to make him a Conqueror's haki user, then what's the need for the other stuff? Because we already felt like, coming out of the time skip, Monster Trio, they've all learned haki, etc. It's just that then what happened is, like, and they're all still relative to each other in a sense, kind of like pre-time skip. But then what happened is, like, well, Luffy's getting some crazy haki, and Zoro's getting some crazy haki, and then Sanji's getting the exoskeleton. Why not just have Sanji get crazy haki too? That's my big question. Um, 10K, thanks for the 2. You have to pick one, Sanji or Usopp for Conqueror's haki. That's a tough one. That's a tough one. Let me put it this way. If they're both set to get Conqueror's haki, I think Sanji would definitely get it first. I think there's no way that Oda would write Usopp getting his Conqueror's haki before Sanji. However, if only one character is meant to get Conqueror's haki, then I'd say I'm 50-50 on Sanji. I think I'm a little bit over 50% certain Usopp's going to get Conqueror's haki. He's just written with so many scenes that feel like Conqueror's haki user type scenes. But Gaban is really big. If I had to pick one, I think it's... This might just be more of a because I think I've long believed Usopp would get Conqueror's haki, and now me feeling more certain Sanji's going to get Conqueror's haki, that's a newer development. So this might not be the most logical, but just because it's been a thing in my head longer, I'm kind of like, okay, maybe I'm still a little bit more confident Usopp will get Conqueror's haki, but I really wouldn't be surprised if Sanji gets Conqueror's haki like this arc and Usopp doesn't. Like, I wouldn't be surprised. If they both get it, I think Sanji gets it first. If Sanji's just never meant to get Conqueror's haki, I think that's... I don't know. Because I also used to believe that Usopp would die and would go out swinging or something like that, but now I'm less confident in that. I don't think Oda's going to pull the trigger on that, if he was ever going to. So... It's also made me doubt Usopp in general getting Conquerors, too. Like, I've just had doubts about the direction of Usopp in general. The Gaban thing is really big for Sanji. I think that is really, really big for Sanji. It just makes me question the whole exoskeleton route, because it just becomes totally unnecessary if you're just going to have Sanji improve with haki. Because then you can just have Sanji keep scaling up with Zoro in terms of haki, you know? The Book of Eli, thanks to the 2. What if the Ancient Kingdom text shown through Sanji? I don't think Judge has it like that. I think the Ancient Kingdom tech is more likely to be shown through like Frankie or Vegapunk. I think the most unfortunate thing for Sanji is that he was created by like the 5th best scientist in One Piece. I don't know. Yuval, thanks for the 6. Check out the new Lego One Piece sets. I think I saw that on Twitter. I think that's kind of cool. I think Sanji could have beaten Lucci. I just think it would have been a higher difficulty than Zoro. I wouldn't be surprised if Sanji and Lucci are like this, like right about equal. I wouldn't be surprised. Let me ask you guys: will Sanji get Conqueror's haki? Joey Dirts, thanks for the 5. Did it piss you off when Sanji used black hardening in Wano anime to catch the bullets? Maybe we just haven't seen hardening because he's always wearing black. Oh, I don't even remember that. Sanji's black hardening in Wano anime to catch the... I don't think I saw that. I watched the whole Queen fight, and he didn't use black hardening in that. It is tricky because Sanji's always wearing... Or he's generally wearing black, but he's had enough scenes in the story, both between Wano and... Throughout Wano, he's wearing more colorful clothing, and in Whole Cake, he was wearing white for a good section of it. So there's a long section of time that was available for him to use black hardening. I don't think Oda ever made a clear visual. I know some people talk about how he showed black hardening against like X Drake, but I think it's visually a little hard to tell personally. I don't know. Judge is like 2nd or 3rd best. I think like I personally okay, so Vegapunk is easily number 1, right? Vegapunk's easily number 1. Then you get down to like Judge might be 2nd. What does Judge have? Judge's creation. He has the clone army, right? He has the clone army that he made. and then he's got the Germa, and those are his like perfect creations. I feel like Queen's shit is more impressive because Queen basically duplicated all of the Germa abilities in himself, and then that's just one of his things. Because then he's got all of those, like the plague virus and the Isoni virus. Like he's got a lot of shit, you know. I don't know. Maybe it's a wash between Queen and Judge, but then you've also got fucking. I guess I just don't view the Germ as that impressive. And then you got Caesar, who Caesar's definitely to me above Judge, because Caesar's like the most coveted scientist in the New World period, outside of Vegapunk. But Vegapunk's off limits because Vegapunk works for the world government, right? But all pirates, underworld characters, etc., they covet Caesar the most, because Caesar's basically got so many experiments, like Kaido's entire army built by Caesar. The Gigantification project for Big Mom, that's made by Caesar, right? The Shinokuni, which is fucking broken, by the way. Like, the entire Straw Hat Pirate, like, you can joke about Caesar's shit, but, like, the entire Straw Hat Pirates, they had to, like, fucking run from Caesar. From Caesar's bullshit, like his fucking Shinokuni virus. JWP, thanks for the 20, man. I feel like as we're getting farther in the story, it's become more jarring that most Strahds don't have Haki. Like, how far can an awakened Demonio Fluid Robin really push a God's Knight with Haki, regeneration, and a fruit? Yeah, the God's Knights have really changed my opinion. Because for a long time, I was kind of like, well, the Strahds don't all need Haki, because I feel like their opponents, the only reason they would need Haki is if they have to fight a Logia. And even then, there's workarounds. Like, Frankie could add Sea Stone to his artillery, right? Like, I just viewed it as like, well, Robin's already Tobi Roppo level strong. She can awaken her fruit. She can do so many other things, right? Frankie can keep on upgrading and upgrading. Like, Jinbei is already in a good spot. Nami's got a broken-ass ability, right? I just felt like so many of the Strats have workarounds. Like, Chopper can awaken his fruit or something like that. Or, you know, like, come up with new forms. So I always felt like Haki is kind of optional for a lot of them, because the only reason you really need it at a certain point is like, are they going to be fighting admirals? No. Are they going to be fighting Logia users and stuff? They don't need to. But the God's Knights are tricky, because the God's Knights are a very strong, just general batch of characters. They're not admiral level, but they're still at a point where you need Haki to deal with them. So, I mean, I've talked about it. I think Robin could learn Haki very well this arc. I think some of the Strats could learn Haki very well this arc. I definitely think Usopp needs it. Yeah. Okay, so about almost 60% of people think Sanji's going to get Conqueror's Haki. Almost 60%. I definitely think that's roughly where I would put it for myself. I've got Sanji Conqueror's Haki at about 50% probability for me. Yeah. No, we know Sanji uses armament. I'm not saying Sanji doesn't use armament. We're just saying, like, the black coating, right? That's kind of like the higher level of armament that we've kind of seen, because we've seen armament used without any of the coating, and then, like, it's implied that the higher, like, the very first time Luffy used armament post time skip against the Pacifista, he didn't use black coating. Same with Zoro and Sanji. They didn't use any black coating when they first fought the Pacifista, and they were all using Haki in that scene. Then as the story progresses, then we see, like, a higher level being black coating. We at least want to see Sanji do that, right? Obviously, Sanji can use armament. That's not a question. Yeah, okay, now we're debating shit. Now we're debating a bunch of shit about Sanji, power-ups, stuff like that. All right, guys. For time-wise, I'm going to have to call stream here. That's why I set the stream a little bit early, because I have a little bit of an earlier cutoff. But I'm really fucking enjoying the showdown that we're getting right now. Really fucking loving One Piece right now. When we get back after this break, we're going to do, obviously, a prediction stream this Monday. And that's going to be a really fun prediction stream, because literally anything can happen next chapter. So watch out for next Monday's prediction stream. And yeah, like, One Piece is just, this is, like, as exciting as it gets. Like, this is fucking insane. I know some people felt like Elbaf was, like, a little bit slow at certain points. Well, this is it. Like, we're going, the whole Avengers, like, the strongest heavy hitters that we have on the good guys' side, they're all going up there to get our first round against the final boss, like, next chapter. So, this is fucking insane. I think Oda paced shit out perfectly first debuting the Gods Knights, kicking the ass of like the lower level Strats. And then next we've got like the strongest Strats plus Loki and maybe Gaban all going back up to take on Emu himself. Like Oda paced this whole setup out like just magnificently. And like maybe if we're lucky, the Strats will lose. I'm not saying that has to happen, but that would be really, really cool if like this is the midpoint for the arc and the Strats actually get a taste of defeat. So I'm really looking forward to this shit. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Fucking great chapter, great setup, and yeah, it was a fun stream. That